The weight of her words still hung in the air, sharp and unyielding, like a winter wind cutting through an open window. "You never worked a day in your life, Dad," Emily had said, her voice dripping with a bitterness I hadn't heard since she was a teenager, slamming doors and swearing she'd never forgive me. She was 35 now, a mother herself, standing in my living room with her arms crossed, her eyes refusing to meet mine. The accusation wasn't just wrong, it was a blade, slicing through decades of sacrifice, late nights, and choices I'd made for her, for us. I was 70 years old, retired but not broken. And yet, in that moment, I felt like I'd lost something I couldn't name. I sat in my study that evening, the same room where I'd spent countless hours building a life for my family. The oak desk, scarred from years of use, held memories of contracts signed, deals brokered, and dreams chased. On the wall, a faded photograph of Emily at her college graduation, her smile wide, her future bright, stared back at me. I was the CEO of Crestwood Financial for 25 years, a company that shaped lives, including hers. The irony was bitter. Crestwood owned the mortgage on her house, the one she and her husband struggled to pay each month. She didn't know. How could she? I'd never told her. My career wasn't something I flaunted. To Emily, I was just Dad, the man who missed her piano recitals, who was always busy, who didn't know how to talk about feelings. She saw the absences, not the reasons. She didn't see the 3 a.m. meetings with investors in London, the weekends spent poring over financial reports, or the weight of knowing 2,000 employees depended on my decisions. I didn't expect her to, but never worked. That cut deeper than I could admit. The story of how I got here wasn't simple. Born in a small Ohio town, I grew up with a father who worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on. He taught me that love wasn't just words, it was action, even when it hurt. When I was 10, I watched him collapse from exhaustion, his hands calloused, his pride intact. I swore I'd build a different life, one where my family wouldn't have to scrape by. That promise drove me through college, through sleepless nights at business school, and into the cutthroat world of finance. Crestwood wasn't my first job, but it was my legacy. I started as a junior analyst, clawing my way up through sheer grit. By 40, I was CEO, steering a company that financed homes, dreams, and futures. It wasn't glamorous numbers, meetings, and endless pressure, but it was meaningful. Every mortgage we approved was someone's chance at stability, including Emily's. When she and her husband, Mark, bought their house, I made sure their application went through smoothly. I didn't tell her. I didn't want her to feel indebted, or worse, pitted. Her words that day weren't just about me. They were about her own struggles, her job as a graphic designer, her 2 kids, the bills piling up. She saw me as a relic, someone who'd had it easy, who couldn't possibly understand her world. I wanted to tell her everything, to lay out the years of sacrifice, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I let the silence grow, hoping she'd see the truth in time. That night, I pulled out an old journal, one I'd kept during my early years at Crestwood. The pages were yellowed, the ink smudged, but the words were raw. Me fears, my hopes, my love for Emily. I wrote about the day she was born, how I held her tiny hand and promised to give her the world. I wrote about the guilt of missing her school plays, the pride of watching her graduate, the ache of knowing she felt distant. Maybe it was time to share those words with her. Maybe it was time to bridge the gap. The next morning, I drove to her house, an hour away in the suburbs. The neighborhood was quiet, with neat lawns and kids' bikes scattered on driveways. Her house was modest, a fixer-upper they'd bought with dreams of making it their own. I knocked. my heart heavy with the weight of what I needed to say. Emily opened the door, her expression guarded. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "About what you said. About me. About us." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Okay, but don't expect me to take it back." I nodded, stepping into the home I'd helped her build, even if she didn't know it yet. The truth was coming, and with it, maybe a chance to heal. Emily's living room was a mess of toys and half-folded laundry, a testament to the chaos of raising two young kids. Her daughter, Lily, 6, was sprawled on the floor, coloring with fierce concentration, while 4-year-old Max banged a toy truck against the coffee table. The air smelled of coffee and something faintly burnt, maybe toast from breakfast. Emily gestured to the couch, and I sat, feeling like an intruder in a life I'd helped shape but wasn't part of. "I don't have long," she said, sitting across from me, her arms crossed again. "The kids have a playdate soon, and I've got a deadline." Her tone was clipped, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of curiosity. She wanted to know why I'd driven all this way. I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "Emily, what you said yesterday about me never working, it's been eating at me. I need you to understand something. I worked. Every day. For years. For you and your mom." She rolled her eyes, a gesture so familiar it stung. "Dad, you were always working. Meetings. Trips. Phone calls. But you were never here. You missed everything, me recitals. My games. My birthdays. Mom was the one who held it together." Her words were a mirror to my guilt, reflecting every moment I'd chosen the office over home. I wanted to argue, to tell her about the deals that kept our family afloat. But I knew it wouldn't land. Not yet. I wasn't perfect, I admitted. I made choices I thought were right at the time. But I need you to know what my work was. What it meant. She leaned back, skeptical. "Fine. Enlighten me." I started small, painting a picture of my early days at Crestwood. When I joined the company, I was nobody. A kid from Ohio with a degree and a chip on my shoulder. I worked 80-hour weeks, analyzing data, pitching to clients who didn't trust me because I was young. But I kept going because I wanted you to have what I didn't, a chance at a life without worry. Emily's face softened slightly, but her guard was still up. "You say that, but we weren't rich. We lived in a normal house. Went to public schools. If you were working so hard, where did it all go?" It was a fair question, one I'd asked myself in darker moments. "It went to stability," I said. "Your college fund. Your mom's medical bills when she got sick. The house we lived in. And later, when you and Mark bought this place." I hesitated, unsure if I should reveal it yet. "I made sure you got the mortgage." Her eyes widened, a mix of shock and suspicion. "What do you mean? You made sure?" "I was the CEO of Crestwood Financial," I said, the words feeling strange after years of keeping them quiet. "The company that approved your loan. I didn't pull strings, but I made sure your application was handled right. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me." Emily stared at me, her mouth slightly open. "You're saying you were the CEO? For how long?" 25 years, I said. "I stepped down 5 years ago, when I retired." She shook her head, disbelief etched into her features. "Why didn't you ever tell me? All those years. You let me think you were just some middle manager type, always busy with nothing to show for it." "I didn't want you to see me as a title," I said. "I wanted you to see me as your dad. Maybe I got that wrong." The room fell silent, save for Max's toy truck crashing into the table. Lily looked up, sensing the tension, and Emily waved her off gently. Go play in your room. Sweetie, she said, when the kids were gone. She turned back to me, her voice quieter. You still should have told me. You let me think you didn't care. I cared, I said, my throat tight. Every decision I made was for you. But I know I missed things. I know I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm trying to fix that now. She didn't respond, but her eyes were softer, searching mine for something truth. Maybe. Or regret. I pulled the journal from my bag, its leather cover worn from years of handling. This is from when I started at Crestwood, I said, handing it to her. I wrote about you, about what I was working for. Read it, if you want. It might help you understand. Emily took the journal, her fingers tracing the edges. She didn't open it, but she didn't give it back either. I need time, she said finally. This is a lot. I nodded, standing to leave. I'm not going anywhere. Whenever you're ready. As I drove home, the weight of her words lingered, but so did a flicker of hope. Maybe the truth could build a bridge. Maybe it wasn't too late. The drive back to my house was a blur of autumn trees and half-formed thoughts. Emily's face stunned, skeptical. Searching stayed with me, etched into the quiet of the car. I'd laid the truth bare, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Truth alone doesn't heal years of distance. It's just the first step on a long road. I wondered if she'd read the journal, if those faded pages could say what I'd failed to all these years. Back home, I sat in my study again, the familiar creak of my chair grounding me. The room felt smaller now, its walls heavy with memories. I opened my laptop and scrolled through old emails, relics of my time at Crestwood. One caught my eye, a message from 2008, when Emily was in college. It was from her, a rare email, sent during a rough patch. Dad, I know you're busy, but I miss you. Can we talk soon? I'd responded with a quick promise to call, but I hadn't. A board meeting, a merger, something urgent had pulled me away. I closed the laptop, the guilt as fresh as it was 17 years ago. I didn't hear from Emily for days. I didn't push, though every instinct screamed to call, to fix things. Instead, I waited, giving her the space she'd asked for. On the 5th day, my phone buzzed with a text. I read some of the journal. Can we meet tomorrow? My place. 10 a.m. My heart leapt, though I tempered it with caution. This wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. The next morning, I arrived at her house with a box of donuts, her favorite. Chocolate glazed. A small peace offering. Lily and Max greeted me with squeals, grabbing the box before Emily could protest. She looked tired, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, but there was a warmth in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Thanks for the donuts, she said, a faint smile breaking through. The kids will be wired all day. We sat at her kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window. The journal lay between us, a silent witness. I read the first few entries, she said, her voice careful. You wrote about Mom a lot. And me. I didn't know you felt all that. I didn't know how to show it. I admitted. I thought providing was enough. A house. A future, I thought that was love. I see now how much I got wrong. She nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the journal. You wrote about missing my 5th birthday because of a deal in Chicago. You said you cried in your hotel room. I always thought you didn't care. Her words hit like a punch. I cared. Too much. Maybe. I just didn't know how to balance it. She looked away, her eyes glistening. I spent years angry at you. I thought you chose work over us. But reading this, it's like you were trying to hold up the world for us. I was, I said softly, but I dropped it too many times. We sat in silence, the weight of years settling between us. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. The mortgage thing. You really made that happen. I nodded. Crestwood was my life for 25 years. I approved thousands of loans. But yours was personal. I checked every detail. Made sure it went through. I wanted you to have a home for your kids. She swallowed hard, her eyes meeting mine. Why didn't you tell me? All this time. I thought we got lucky. I didn't want you to feel like I was controlling you. I said. Or that you owed me. I just wanted you to have what I didn't. Stable start. Emily leaned back, processing. I don't know what to say. I'm still mad. But I get it now. A little. That's enough for now, I said, my voice thick. We've got time. Before I left, she hugged me brief, tentative, but real. It was the first hug in years that didn't feel like an obligation. As I drove away, I felt lighter, like a knot in my chest had loosened. The road ahead was long, but we'd taken a step. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. Weeks passed, and Emily and I began to talk more small conversations at first. About the kids, her work, the weather. Each call or visit felt like laying bricks, slowly rebuilding a bridge I'd thought was gone. She hadn't read the whole journal yet, but she'd mention a passage now and then, like a breadcrumb trail leading us closer. I didn't push. I'd learned that forcing things only widened the gap. One Saturday, she invited me to Lily's school play. It was a big deal. Lily had a solo, and Emily wanted me there. I arrived early, clutching a bouquet of daisies for my granddaughter. The auditorium was packed with parents and grandparents, the air buzzing with pride and nervous energy. Emily saved me a seat, and when Lily took the stage, belting out a song about dreams, I felt a lump in my throat. I glanced at Emily, who was smiling, her eyes shining. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. After the play, we went for ice cream, the kids chattering about costumes and forgotten lines. Emily and I sat across from each other, the kids between us, and she said something that stopped me cold. I looked up Crestwood Financial, she said, stirring her coffee. You weren't just CEO. You turned the company around. Articles said you saved it from bankruptcy. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the spotlight. It was a team effort. I just led. She raised an eyebrow. Don't do that. Don't downplay it. I read about the layoffs you fought, the families you helped. You did a lot, Dad. Her words warmed me, but they also stung. I wish I'd done as much for you, I said quietly. She didn't respond right away, just sipped her coffee. Then, softly, you did. I just didn't see it. That night, I dug through old files in my study, pulling out a scrapbook I'd kept during my Crestwood years. It was filled with clippings, articles about the company, photos from corporate events, a letter from an employee thanking me for keeping her job. I decided to share it with Emily, not to boast, but to show her the world I'd lived in. Maybe it would help her see me, not just as Dad, but as a man who tried to do right. The next time I visited, I brought the scrapbook. Emily flipped through it, pausing at a photo of me at a ribbon cutting for a community housing project Crestwood funded. This was you, she asked, pointing to a younger version of me, smiling broadly in a suit. Yeah, I said. That was a good day. We helped 50 families get homes. She shook her head, a mix of awe and frustration. You never told me any of this. Why? I didn't think it mattered, I said. I thought being your dad was what mattered. It does, she said, her voice firm. But this is part of you. I wish I'd known. We talked for hours that day, longer than we had in years. She asked about my early days, the stress, The victories. I told her about the time I nearly quit, overwhelmed by the pressure, but stayed because I wanted her to have a college fund. She listened, really listened, and I saw something shift in her on new respect. Maybe, or at least understanding. As I left, she handed me a drawing from Lilia's stick figure grandpa with a big smile. She adores you, Emily said. Don't mess it up. I won't. I promised, clutching the drawing like a lifeline. Driving home, I realized we weren't just rebuilding a bridge, we were building a new one. Stronger than before. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. The holidays approached, and Emily invited me to Thanksgiving at her house, first in years. I arrived with a homemade apple pie, a recipe my mother had passed down, hoping it would feel like a gesture of family. The house was warm with the smell of turkey and cinnamon, and the kids ran to me, wrapping their small arms around my legs. Emily's husband, Mark, shook my hand, his usual reserve softened by a genuine smile. Good to see you, Tom, he said, and I felt a flicker of belonging. Dinner was loud, messy, and perfect. Lily spilled cranberry sauce. Max demanded seconds of mashed potatoes, and Emily laughed in a way I hadn't heard since she was a girl. After dessert, we sat by the fireplace, the kids playing nearby. Emily pulled out the journal again, its pages more worn now. I finished it. She said quietly, You wrote about Mom's cancer, how you stayed up all night researching treatments. I nodded, the memory heavy. That was a hard year. I thought if I could fix it, I could fix everything. You tried, she said, her voice thick. I didn't know how much you carried. I looked at her, my daughter, now a woman navigating her own battles. I didn't want you to carry it too. That's why I kept it quiet. She reached for my hand, a rare gesture. I'm sorry I said you never worked. I was angry, but I was wrong. Her apology was a balm, soothing wounds I'd carried for years. I'm sorry too, I said, for all the times I wasn't there. I thought I was building a future for you, but I missed the present. We sat in silence, the fire crackling. Then she smiled, a little mischievous. So, Mr. CEO, any other secrets you're hiding? I laughed, the sound surprising me. Not secrets, just stories. Want to hear one? She nodded, and I told her about the time Crestwood nearly collapsed during the 2008 financial crisis. I described the sleepless nights, the boardroom fights, the families we saved by restructuring loans. Her eyes widened as I spoke, seeing a side of me she'd never known. Mark joined in, asking questions about the industry, and for the first time, I felt like part of their world. Later, as I helped clean up, Emily handed me a photo from the night, me, her, Mark, and the kids, smiling around the table. Keep this, she said, so you remember we're family. I tucked the photo into my wallet, next to the one from her graduation. Driving home, I realized something. The distance between us wasn't gone, but it was shrinking. Each visit, each story, each moment shared was a step toward healing. I'd spent my life building a company, but now I was building something more important, a relationship with my daughter. The next week, Emily called with a request. Lily wants you to come to her soccer game. And maybe you could tell her about your job. She thinks you're a superhero. I chuckled, my heart full. I'm no superhero. Just a guy who tried his best. You're her superhero, Emily said. And maybe mine too. That night, I looked at the photo again, tracing the faces of my family. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was fighting to prove something. I was just Tom, Emily's dad, and that was enough. Spring came, and with it, a new rhythm to my life. Emily and I saw each other weekly now soccer games. coffee dates, or just quick visits to drop off books for the kids. Each moment felt like a gift, a chance to rewrite the years we'd lost. Lily's soccer game was the next milestone. A sunny Saturday where I sat on the sidelines, cheering louder than I'd meant to. Emily sat beside me, laughing as I shouted encouragement to Lily, who waved proudly after scoring a goal. After the game, Lily ran over, her ponytail bouncing. "Grandpa, Mommy said you were a big boss. Did you have a cape?" I grinned, pulling her onto my lap. "No cape, kiddo. Just a suit and a lot of coffee. I help people get houses. Like yours." Her eyes widened. "Like a magic housemaker." "Something like that," I said, glancing at Emily, who smiled. Later, as we ate ice cream, Lily peppered me with questions about my job. I kept it simple, telling her about helping families, about making tough choices. Emily listened, her expression soft, and I realized she was hearing these stories anew, through her daughter's eyes. That evening, Emily invited me to stay for dinner. As we cooked together her chopping vegetables, me stirring sauce, she brought up the journal again. "There's one part one keep thinking about," she said. "You wrote about the day I moved out for college. You said you felt like you were losing me." I paused, the memory sharp. "I did. You were my whole world. Em. Letting you go was the hardest thing I'd ever done." She looked at me, her eyes glistening. "I didn't know. I thought you were relieved to have me out of the house." "Never," I said, my voice breaking. I was proud, but I was scared. I didn't know if I'd done enough. "If you'd be okay." "I was okay," she said. "Because of you. The college fund. The support. I didn't see it then, but I do now." We ate dinner as a family, the kids' laughter filling the gaps in our conversation. Afterward, Emily showed me a project she was working on, a logo for a local charity. "I'm struggling with it," she admitted. "I wanted to mean something, like your work did." I looked at her design, vibrant and bold, and saw her talent shining through. "You're already doing that," I said. "Your work tells stories. That's powerful." She smiled, a real smile, and I felt the last of the walls between us crumble. As I drove home, the sunset painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I realized we'd done more than rebuild a bridge. We'd built a home not of brick and mortar, but of trust, understanding, and love. Months later, Emily called with news. She'd gotten a promotion, a big one, and wanted to celebrate. "You're coming, right?" she asked. "I want you to see what I've built, like you did." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, my heart full. At the celebration, surrounded by her colleagues, her family, and her pride, I saw my daughter in a new light, a woman who'd inherited my drive, my heart, my will to make a difference. And as she raised a glass to thank her team, her eyes met mine, and she mouthed, "Thanks, Dad." I nodded, my eyes misty. I'd spent my life building a legacy, but this moment, this connection was the one that mattered most.